My name is Sadhana. I do energy balancing therapies, which incorporates sound music, sound healing with tuning forks and crystal bowl therapy, as well as rebalancing the chakras. My background has been in travel management, and then for various reasons I wanted to change direction. I retrained and did a psychology degree. That's when I first came across John Levine's Alphamusic. I was living in a very busy part of London at the time, had the South Circular, so much traffic, and I was told about Alphamusic, and I got John Levine's Silence of Peace, and it was so effective it completely blanked the traffic. And this is without headphones, this is just regular CD on my laptop, and it really helped me focus and study for my assignments and my degree. And then later on, when I started doing the energy balancing, I got the Orange Grove siesta, which was amazing. It was so relaxing, not just for me, but for the clients as well, and it really helped the healing to go deeper. And then later again, I got the Silence of the Heart, which worked. It says, it did what it says on the tin. It really helped people to release any heart blocks, any trauma that might have been held there, as well as all the other energy work that we were doing. And then recently, about 4 or 5 years ago, I came across the Archangel music, which was another dimension, added another dimension to John's music. And I found that really helpful with young children. There was a young boy I was working with who had dyslexia and ADHD, and he was having nightmares. And his parents, his dad was an osteopath, and it was another friend of mine who was an osteopath who recommended me to them. And he was at a Steiner school, so he was quite already in a really good environment for him. But after like the second session with me, the very first session, his parents said he stopped having nightmares. So that whole week before he saw me again for the second time, he hadn't woken up in his sleep in the night. So that's why they asked me to see him again. And in total I had 3 sessions with him. He was calmer, he stopped having nightmares, he stopped waking up, not just nightmares, he stopped waking up in the night, he was sleeping right through. I was working with crystals as well, which he understood, and the angel music. He would go and straight away put on the angel therapy music, the Raphael. I had Archangel Raphael and Archangel Michael, and And the first time I was with him, it was just before his bedtime, and I asked his mother to sit with us just so that he's familiar with me. And the second time he didn't want his mother, he said no, it's fine. So it was 7 or 8 at the time. So it was a really lovely transformation for him. He was calmer, he liked it, he understood. I think that the younger children, the children that are coming through now, are much more aware. They're much more self-aware, they're more sensitive. He loves music anyway, so it was really good. It was a really good way to connect with him. And it wasn't like, I call it background music in the sense that it's working without you realizing it's working. So it's not something you consciously need to engage with. So he would just be less agitated in his body language. So that's the way I would interpret that's how he calmed down. It's very subtle, the angel music. It's very the ones I've listened to so far are Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, Archangel Uriel, and Gabriel. So those are the four that I have, and I know that they all work on different aspects of ourselves. So with Raphael, it's more gentler, it's working more with the heart energy, and with Archangel Michael, you kind of notice he's associated with courage, and you actually notice more of your solar plexus energy kind of being more strengthened. And with Uriel, it's the emotional body. So, it's very subtle, because I'm aware of their qualities and the qualities that they engage with. I suppose I maybe notice them more than others would. So it's very subtle. It's very subtle. It's ethereal, just as the name suggests, yes. I lived in London and worked in London for 23 years. I lived at that particular flat, and at that point I'd been living there. It was 2006 when I was doing the psychology degree, and I'd been living there since 1996. And I couldn't sleep with the noise. It was got worse after the congestion. Than the actual traffic got worse from when the congestion charge was brought in around about 2002. So that's when the traffic just escalated, and that's when the noise the sleep just became impossible. And I really noticed the difference with Silence of Peace, that the stress and the noise levels didn't impact me as much, and I was able to get some sleep. I just had insomnia. I just didn't sleep. Everybody knew I couldn't sleep. It was just, I would probably have 3 or 4 hours sleep. With the Alphamusic, with John's Alphamusic, it actually changes the brain wave, so you can actually notice the brain calming, and actually, so it was a noticeable shift, as opposed to just the actual remedies that they could work one day, but they might not the next day. But with the music, it was a definite effect. You could feel my whole body just felt like it was a pneumatic drill. I would just be any noise, I would just almost jump out of my skin. It was just, I was so sensitive to noise. During the day, I would if I'd had a particularly bad night, I would just feel really hyper during the day. It would just take me longer to calm down. So yeah, I would just be tired. I'd be tired from the lack of sleep. Pretty certainly was affecting my health, yeah. I had a lot of stress-related ailments in terms of, it was related to London. It wasn't just the noise, it was the pollution. So I'd got asthma from the pollution. There was a time where I got all my, my whole body was stressed. It was just, I was constantly having things like asthma, things like, I got laryngitis. It was just, my body was under a lot of stress. Yeah, definitely. I was part of one of the reasons why I started the healing journey, the physical healing journey, which the Alphamusic was part of that. I was at a meditation, on a meditation course, a silver meditation course, and the teachers mentioned, we were discussing the alpha brain, the different brain states as part of the meditation course, and the Alphamusic got mentioned on the course, and because I was doing the psychology degree at the same time, I researched it, and that's when I got The Silence of Peace, and that's when I first started listening to it. So that was May 2006. What's happened since then, there's obviously the technology. Alphamusic's based on neuroscience. So I also have been studying the theory of sound. So I've researched it a lot myself with the multiple intelligences that I've trained in. And some of the new age music is, yes, it's calming, it relaxes you, but it's not, there's no scientific evidence that hasn't got science, like studies showing that certain conditions have actually been affected by the music, which John's music does do that. There's scientific evidence, and I personally have seen it myself. John asked me to come to his studio for a radio interview, October 2007, where he had a PhD, a student doing music in PhD, and he had the student listening to his CD while he had his brain, an ECG done on his brain, and I could actually see how his brainwaves changed as he listened to the music. So although I already knew that was happening, for me it validated it to see it physically in front of me. So I saw the evidence right in front of my eyes, as well as experiencing the effect. So for me, it's really easy to recommend John's music because I've seen it in action myself, and I've seen the benefits. I think people tend to get bored of music. The brain adapts. It kind of, and what's great about John's, he's constantly looking at, he's varying the same theme, but with creating different sounds to work on different conditions. So he's now got a range of over 25 albums, which is incredible. And the fact that there's a whole range on the chakras, there's a whole range on the archangel music, which in itself, he's very productive in his music, and it's testament to the benefit that it's giving. Well, I've believed in John's music since I listened to it, and I just think the more people that can benefit from it, the better, really, because we're living in a very, very fast-paced society. People have got so much more demands on their time, their energy, their focus, their attention, and with social media, and then I've seen the change. People just can't focus. They can't keep their attention on things for more than a few minutes, even seconds sometimes, especially children. And there's information, I know people talk about the information overload, but it has serious effects on the brain. The sensory overload, the information overload, and unless people can actually find some space in their brain, which the Silence of Music range creates the space actually in the brain, that's when they can think properly, as opposed to have all these thoughts just floating, taking over. So, for me, having studied neuroscience myself, as well as doing lots of therapies with different people, different treatments, different energy work, I've had people turn around and say they've never felt happy. They've never known a moment where they've just been content. And after a treatment with me, because that's the first time. I said, really? And this one particular lady had been married 3 times, had 3 sons, and she's in her 60s, and she'd never felt that level of happiness or contentment. She then went on to learn meditation. She never studied it in her life. So, it's just incredible how people are open to it when they realise what's out there, and they're opening to themselves, really, And that's, for me, that's key, because everything lies within. The main thing that it helped the music, John's music helps clients with, is this connection of peace, really. It's this calmness that they've maybe not experienced before. It helps them focus and study. I've actually bought the CDs, the Silence of Peace CDs, for my niece and friend when they were doing their A-levels and their degrees. So because I've known it's worked, I've given them as gifts. I've recommended them for people when they're studying. So not only do I use them as therapies, I help people. I recommend them for exam studies, for revision, for focusing, and they've all reported that it's helped them. I mean, one of the guys that he'd studied as a PhD. This was like his 4th degree. He was retraining to be an osteopath. This is the difference between John's music and, other music that will, yes, it'll calm you, but not to the same degree. So it's evidence to prove that sound does change us on a cellular level. There's a lot of evidence to prove that. There's a lot of sound healing. There's, again, I practice with the crystal bowl healing, the tuning forks. On a cellular level, you can measure sound, which, again, it's all about technology. We just didn't have the technology before. We've always known we've been affected by music. And it's interesting that the ear is the first sense organ that's developed. It's interesting that even people that are in strokes, they can still hear music. They're actually affected by music. Even in the Bible, in the scriptures, it will say, "Let there be light." So they're words, they're not, the first reference to is a spoken word. So it's quite interesting how we're affected by. It affects people's moods, doesn't it? Sound. It's not just music. People. I've known people. I mean, I myself do it. I'll walk in somewhere, and if it's too loud, I'll walk out again. So I think it does affect people that have dyslexia, and that they've again been able to concentrate better with the music, and the other therapies. I think with younger children, it's with adults you can actually they're more open to listening to the music. With children, it's more difficult to actually get them to pay attention to music. So it was interesting that John's created this album for angry teenagers. That's the last Dragonfly, yes. So that's quite interesting, because I think that will appeal to a whole other group of people, of teenagers. I already know of a couple of friends' kids that I'm going to recommend it to. So dyslexia, because I studied dyslexia as part of my degree with autism, and it affects, because it's a spectrum, it affects people in so many different ways. So it depends how extreme, which side of the scale they're on, to how much it'll affect them. I personally would say that, having seen John's music just the whole grow so much in the last decade, is fascinating, and the evidence, all the growing body of evidence that the music, the conditions it helps with, for me it gives me a lot of hope, and I know that's another series of albums that John's done, is the Hope, the concert that he inspired. I just know that anyone that listens to the music can't help but be touched by it.